two artists who created our marketing images for this season's productions of the OK Trenton Project and Junior High No. 2. We're grateful to both of them for sharing their work with our audiences. If you would like to purchase any of the work that you see downstairs, if it's on sale, you'll see a cost. Please let our box office know, and we will be happy to put you in contact with them. They are amazing people, and we want to support their work as much as we can. Like I said, speaking of our upcoming shows, subscriptions for the season are available now at our box office and will be available after the show. We have 3 exciting world premieres that you are all about to hear about. If you like what you hear about tonight, please consider donating to Passage to support our mission and our work. We have a new program this season called Heroes of the House Lights. You can become a hero by signing up, and it will be like kind of a Netflix type of thing where they will take an automatic donation every month, and they'll run it every month just like that. Our heroes have wonderful benefits. You can get free coffee at our shows. You get a fun email from me every month that tells you what we're doing behind the scenes. And you get a signed season poster, which is very exciting. So you can see any Passage staff after the show if you'd like to sign up for that program. The Mill Hill Playhouse is owned by the City of Trenton, and we'd like to thank them for our new state-of-the-art HVAC system that you are all breathing right now, the lovely air. It is brand new. So thank you to the City of Trenton. Thank you. Take it. We also would like to remind you that emergency exits are over there and down the stairs. Please do not exit if there is an emergency through the no exit doors. It will get you nowhere. We would also like to acknowledge that the Mill Hill Playhouse sits on the traditional land of the Lenni Lenape people, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us to where we are today. And join us in our commitment to learning how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. Finally, and I would like to give an additional thanks to Starbucks for donating the lovely coffee you all had downstairs, and to Royal Cake Creations, which is just a few blocks away. If you liked their cupcakes, please return. Their website is royalcakecreations.com, and if you go to the store, I checked, you can get gift certificates. Finally, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight's panel. Victoria David John, who's Princeton University class of 2019, is a writer, theater director, and lighting designer, a recipient of the Martin A. Dale Fellowship and the New York Women's Foundation Directing Apprenticeship. She is currently writing, and a writer herself. She's writing and composing a musical on Black women of the Civil Rights Movement while based in New York City. As her senior thesis at Princeton, she directed a 75-person community-based production of The Odyssey, which included members of Trenton Circus Squad, who we love, Trenton Children's Chorus, and Homefront, as well as current Princeton University students at the Berlin Theater. Most recently, she served as the Community Impact Coordinator at the Public Theater and its collaboration with Disney to the stage musical adaptation of Hercules, and directed Reroute by Stephanie Kuo, yes, the Wet Paint Festival. We are grateful to have her here this season. She is Passage's artistic assistant, which includes being the dramaturg for the OK Trenton Project, the associate sound designer for Junior High No. 2, and the casting assistant for group. She does it all, ladies and gentlemen. I'll let her make the rest of our introductions. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to talking to you.
Here. Let's get started with some intros. First on our panel, the lovely Ryan Dominguez. Ryan joined Passage as its artistic director in 2017. Prior to that, she worked at a variety of theaters on both coasts, with most of her work being for Simpatico. Absolutely. How's that? Good. Perfect. For most of her work being for Simpatico Theater, which she co-founded in 2004, and the Wilma Theater in Philadelphia. She received her MFA in directing for the University of California, Irvine, and has been an adjunct professor at Rider University since 2018. She was nominated for a Barrymore Award for her direction of Passage's Morir Soñando in 2019, and will be directing the OK Trenton Project this February. Next down on the line, David Lee White is a playwright, performer, and educator based in New Jersey. David was in the inaugural group of playwrights to receive commissions from the New Jersey Performing Arts Center Stage Exchange Program. The result was Fixed, a play about navigating the mental health care system, which premiered at Passage in 2017. His mental health awareness work continued with Panther Hollow, his solo show about his battle with clinical depression in his youth, that we have been grateful to share with Passage audiences. For 14 years, David was the Associate Artistic Director at Passage, and while here, he workshopped and produced the farces Blood, a Comedy, and Slippery as Sin, as well as the oral history works Trenton Lights and Profiles, co-created with former Artistic Director June Ballinger. He is also the co-writer of both the OK Trenton Project and Junior High No. 2. Richard Bradford is a playwright, actor based in Philadelphia. He is also the Assistant Artistic Director for Iron Age Theater, the co-artistic director for Curio Theater, as well as the company member of Theater in the X. He is also a playwright and a performer of To My Unborn Child, a love letter from Fred Hampton, a one-man show which was performed at Passage back in 2019. As a performer, he was also seen in Passage's 2018 production of Salt, Pepper, Ketchup. He is also the co-writer of both the OK Trenton Project and Junior High No. 2, and will be acting in Junior High No. 2.
I think you should do more.
Julia Rosenblatt is a playwright, director, actor, and theater educator. She was the co-founding artistic director of the award-winning Heartbeat Ensemble for 16 years. She is an adjunct theater professor at Capital Community College. And Julia is a Theater of the Oppressed practitioner and has taught TO workshops throughout the United States, Nicaragua, and Mexico. Julia holds a BA from UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, and an MFA in playwriting from Spalding University. She is the book writer for this season's production of Group, a world premiere musical. And Marcus D. Harvey, an award-winning actor, writer, singer, director, and activist. Marcus holds his MFA in acting from Brooklyn College MA in dramatic writing for social change from NYU, and dual undergraduate degrees in dramatic arts and performance studies from UNC Chapel Hill. As a director, he has directed Chase Hutchinson's Surely, Goodness, and Mercy here at Passage. And as a writer, he has written 2 solo shows, Are We Not Men and Baba, A Black Boy's Cry. He is currently at work on his first full-length play centered around Black men and suicide and depression, entitled I Am Not Okay, through Passage's Play Lab program. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists for tonight, please come Thank you so much. I would love to kick things off with asking you each to speak briefly about the work that you are doing with Passage and the technique that you use to create the show. And Brian, if maybe we could start with you. Or Marcus,
Start with Marcus.
Kick it off me.
So I am, repeat the question.
Speak briefly about the work that you're doing here at Passage.
Great, so I am the writer of I Am Not Okay, and it is an interview-based project, so I am in the middle of interviewing people. The play is based here in Trenton, so I've been interviewing people in the community, from Darren Freedom Green to Dr. Ebony White to Reverend Renee at some church down the street. I met with Dr. Rob Connor, who runs Christina Sykes Academy. So I am looking at Trenton I like to write stories of communities in which I can tell the truth. I don't want to tell my perception of what that truth is, right? So I want to engage with the community because I think community conversation is how I make art. And if I can't make art that reflects community, then I'm not making art that's important. And I will stop there.
Thank you. All right. So I'm the book writer for the musical Group. Group is a musical about intensive outpatient therapy, group therapy for addiction. And this also started as a research-based, interview-based project of mine several years ago. And I met my lyricist and composing partners, and we started working together about a couple years ago, and right before COVID, we started working with Passage. And yeah.
Well, I am the co-playwright with my friend here on the OK Trenton project, and also on the Hedgepeth William project.
Junior high too?
Junior high too.
That's right.
And
if you need help with titles or
yes.
We did rename it.
Yeah. The OK Trenton project is an interview-based project also, and we're dealing a lot with moment work, which is pretty much intense and kind of new to me in this experience, but it's been a beautiful journey talking to a lot of people in the community and talking about what does art mean in the community, who deserves to have art, and what happens when art is taken away because of a certain perception about the community. And like Marcus was saying, we need to relay the truth about the community and not just our views and our perspectives.
David Lee White with Rich. I am working on the OK Trenton project and Junior High 2. And I'm trying to think of something that you didn't
Yeah, I
say.
didn't want to
so
say everything.
eloquently. But it is it's a piece, it's an oral history piece, verbatim piece, mostly verbatim piece, that we have been working on for a few years. Obviously we stopped because of the pandemic, but we're back to work again, and it deals with a lot of interviewing and using those interviews and transcripts of interviews as text and dialogue, and then combining that with the moment work, which is very kind of physically based and kind of non-verbally based a lot of times. So it's a really interesting process. And the Junior High 2 will be about the Hedgepeth Williams School, which not a lot of people know, at least not a lot of people in Trenton know, was the first big desegregation case in a public school, but it was on a state level as opposed to Brown versus Board, which was a federal case. So, and it preceded Brown versus Board. So it's a real historical moment that took place here in Trenton. And so we're going to be teaching kids about that, and then working with them to craft a play inspired by that.
That the students and professional actors are going to perform.
The students and professional actors will both be performers.
Yeah. Hi, I'm not a writer. I am up here basically as the director for OK Trenton, and as the person who brought all of these lovely, I'm just so honored to be on stage with all of you, all these lovely people here, but mostly to talk about the way moment work works. Moment work is my background. And it is, so one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is that none of these people handed me a script. Am I right?
Yeah, nope.
And said, please do my play. Some of the plays don't even exist yet. And I think it's an important thing to tell people.
This one doesn't.
Yeah, yours doesn't. Junior high number 2 doesn't. Because a lot of people think that they write a play and they hand us the play and then we do the play and that's how it gets produced. And that's actually not the way many companies do it, and it's certainly not the only way we do it at Passage. We do take scripts that are fully written, but I don't know if everybody knows this, we are a theater that does all new work, so 1st through 5th production. And many times we are helping playwrights to develop the work. What does that mean? So all of these people came to me with an idea. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, and I knew their work, and I said, okay, how do we put this together? I can just speak briefly about the OK Trenton project. Actually, it was none of our ideas. Somebody else came to me with the idea about what happened to the OK sculpture, and they said, do you think this is a play? And I said, I think it is a play. Moment work, which is the technique that my background is in, is something where you are building the moment of a piece outside of the text first. So for example, you look at the elements of theater. So you have lighting, you have set, you have sound, you have costume, you have all of these other elements of theater. How can you use those to get across a moment without having to lean on text. So we come into a room and we give actors set pieces, props, costumes, all these different things to play with. And I'll say to them, for example, let's create a moment about, oh, I don't know, the statue of OK Trent. Just create a moment about it. And what they'll do is they'll use all of the other elements of theater outside of text to create an impression, to create a moment in time. The idea being that whatever text you put on top of that moment is not going to tell the same story. It's actually going to tell the opposite story, because that is how you heighten drama. The moment work was created by Moises Kaufman and Tectonic Theater Project. These are the same people that did the Laramie Project, which many people know, which got made into an HBO movie. But it's the fact that the text actually comes in last and grows alongside all the other elements of theater. It's kind of thought of as devised work, and it's why it's taken 4 years? 4 years for us to write this play. Also, even if somebody just does hand you a script, they've probably been working on that script for at least that long. At Passage, what we like to do is give support to playwrights as they're continuing that journey, because they need to eat.
Correct.
And
keep my lights on.
And keep your lights on. And so yeah, that's my job, to talk about moment work and how we develop plays at Passage.
Amazing.
Love Ryan.
Thank you. Ryan, you mentioned that Passage Theater does all new work, and that's actually what I would love to ask you all about. What do you want us, as your audience, to know about the process of creating new work? What would you love people to know as they come in also to your work about the process?
I am creating, so I don't edit myself. I apologize if I offend anyone in advance. I am creating a black-ass play for black-ass people. And the reason for that is that black stories are often looked at through the white gaze, and I am no longer interested in my ideas being told by white people. And so when I walk through Trenton as an outsider, and I see a community that has lost a voice, right? They don't have a voice at the table. I'm interested in what can I do as an artist to be a voice for those people. When I have a young person who says to me in passing that the city doesn't care about me because they've taken the trash can off my corner, how does that affect his being? What is the trauma that it's caused in his body? And how can we have a conversation as a community around that? And so that is what my work is. And my process is bringing those voices to the room. Right now I'm in the process of reading 300 pages of interviews. Where I teach, they have given me a studio to support my work. So the pages are spread across the studio. And I just pick up a page a day and read it. And figure out, is this the voice that's speaking to me today? And if it is, then I'll write something about it. It could be a line, it could be 20, it could be whatever comes, right? But I studied under Anna Devere Smith. I don't know if you all know who she is, but she's considered the legend of documentary theater work, interview-based work. And so I got to work with her on this play called Let Me Down Easy. And watching her go back to her work and listening to the words and let it seep into the body, right? So when I'm in the gym, I'm listening to interviews, not listening to music, right? Or I'm watching the interviews because we're in COVID, I had to do some on Zoom, right? And so it's sort of kind of, the work is created organically for me. That is my process. That's always been my process as a writer. And I always think about what's the conversation I want to have.
Cool. We don't have to go in order, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll go down. I think I would want, so the question is, what would we want?
What do you want your audience to
My
know?
audience to know is that that my audience is essential to the playwriting process. Play Lab isn't a perfect example of a piece, that working on a piece through moments like this, through workshops, and that I depend on the audience to guide me after a certain point. I also think
why we're doing a staged reading of Group in January that you can all come see.
Yeah. The work that I was the co-founder of Heartbeat Ensemble, and we're in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford is a city that, as far as I know, has a lot of similarities with Trenton. It is the, similar probably to Trenton, it is the capital of, one of the highest per capita states in the nation, and it is the fourth poorest city in the nation. So it's ripe for lots of theater and conversation and social justice work. And so for me, the work tends to start with the audience, the people, the community, and I go also through interviews and do a lot of research. And then I always feel like I'm bringing it back to the same people, even if it's not literally the same people, right? The idea of the play, the need for the play comes from the community. I start it, I bring it back to the community gives me feedback, I take that, I go back, and we do this several times. And that's essential to my process, and it's also, it's also the way ensemble theater has always, often works, and is part of activism as well, so, yeah.
Well, for
Yeah,
me,
you're just going in order. I
Okay.
get it.
Well, for me, the OK Trenton project is the first time I ever really worked as a co-writer on a project. But usually my process and what I want the audience to know about is talking about, well, I'm a socialist, full disclosure, I'm a black socialist, and I like to deal with making white liberals feel uncomfortable. I like to deal with making white conservatives feel uncomfortable, and I like to deal with talking about systems that have oppressed black people and other minorities in this country for the longest time. So I like to pull from history and talk about a lot of historical figures that don't get their voice pushed to the forefront. Before Fred Hampton, the movie came out, a lot of people were like, who's Fred Hampton? I'm like, how do you not know about this amazing person? Because he's dangerous, and I like to talk about the danger, with my characters. Like, when you talk about Martin Luther King, I mean, everybody knows about Martin Luther King because people consider him safe and is easily digestible by white people. But I love to talk about people like Fred Hampton, people from the Black Panthers, people like Denmark Vesey, a lot of people from historical times that make people question their own humanity and how can you treat another person this way, that we will actually want to pick up guns, we will actually want to defend ourselves, we will actually want to do these other type of things that will make our community safe. But then at the same time, you put that human element on them to let them understand this is a human life that wanted to feed kids, wanted to feed children, that just wanted to eat and walk down the street and breathe. Trying to save the world in their own way, but also bringing their philosophical views to this day and time to see how it fits in this puzzle that's going on today, that's happening in this society, because history is repeating itself over and over again. That's why I'm excited to work on the Junior High 2 project, because it's a point in history that people don't know about. The students that's going to this school, they need to know about that, because we are the building blocks of this country. And a lot of things that we've been through and a lot of struggles that we've been through actually has made this country move forward, So it's if we're not going to sit here and tell these stories, then who else are going to tell them? And like you, Marcus, I feel as though that is the mission of the Black playwright, to tell the story about Black people and the stories that make people uncomfortable. I think you should be very uncomfortable when you come to the theater. The theater should not be safe. It just shouldn't be. And you should have the chance to talk to me afterwards or talk to the actors afterwards and say, why did you feel this way? And that's another thing I also like to do, commission the audience and the people to either engage in doing something after you leave or engage in talking and starting a conversation. So that's where my work mostly lies at.
I cannot top that. I think that if there's anything I want people to know, I for the longest time I kind of had two areas of playwriting that I did. One, there was I grew up in the 80s in the Midwest, where I studied, the works of John Guare and Chris Durang and a lot of farces and stuff like that, and that was what I loved, right? And I've done that work. I've been like the funny guy sitting in a chair in a house by myself and doing that work and turning in those plays and seeing the productions. But I did work here for full-time for 14 years and have continued to work because thankfully Ryan has continued to bring me in.
Well, you are around.
I'm around, I just live down the street. But it was during that time when I started doing work with young people in the area and at the schools, and the more I did it, the more I became very aware that that I was telling other people's stories and that I somehow had to account for that. At the time that I started, I felt, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but I felt like I was the only person doing the work or trying to do the work. But as I've gone on, the distance between those two things has kind of started to blur. So I had these, kind of biographical verbatim plays that I did. The first one was If I Could in My Hood, I Would, back in 2005. And then I had my little, my little jokey comedies, which I love, by the way.
They're funny.
They're funny. But I have been, as time has gone on, I have begun collaborating more to the point where even when I'm not doing a verbatim play or something that is rooted in community, I still feel much more comfortable with collaborators in the room. I do musicals where I work with lyricists to create things. We, in turn, work with groups of young people who all kind of get together and talk about things that they're concerned with, and we try to create something from that. I worked with June Ballinger here on Trenton Lights, which was a story about the kind of makeup of Trenton, and we involved a lot of community members in that. And so as we now enter this new chapter, for me anyway, with they're not a new staff at Passage anymore, but I still think of you as kind of new. That I'm able to continue that work and continue it with. I've been working with Rich now for a couple of years, and I really like it.
Well, I'm just going to jump off of that. So what I want people to know is that, first of all, these are 4 or 5 of the most lovely people I've ever met. But also that it's a relationship, it's an investment, it takes time, and that by the time you see a play, it has been through how many drafts? Right? And so I think that the process of a playwright and the process of a play and how a play grows from seedling to production is not one that we've always wanted to grapple with in American theater, right? We want to see the nice, shiny, finished product and, the applause at the end, but there are these beautiful moments that happen when a play is in its 2nd or 3rd draft that are just as beautiful, sometimes more beautiful than what happens on the final stage. And it is when these people are going through some really hard stuff, right? This isn't working and I don't know why. We did it yesterday. We're trying to cast an actor and I don't know if that is the actor I want in this. I'm writing a play and I don't know where it's going. These are conversations that I think I've had with all of you.
Or
Right.
this idea scares me,
Oh,
Yeah.
right?
this idea is
Yeah.
it scares me and is keeping me up at night.
Correct, right? Like, so I threw the idea out to Ryan because a student of mine died by suicide. And so the day after she said to me, we're gonna write this, we're gonna commission you to write this play, I was like, oh, no, the fuck you not. Not me, right? Because it scared me in a way that I was like, I am not, who am I to tell this story, right? At this moment, at this time. And I went home and my wife was like, well, she said you're gonna do it, so I guess you're gonna do it, right? And so I think it's like having the support as a writer that like you don't get in other spaces has been helpful to me, right? Has given me a new like way to feel about myself and my process, right? And for someone to ask me as a writer, what do you need? And they try to help you get it,
We try.
right? It's like something that writers don't get often, right? It's like, where's the draft,
Yeah.
right? It was due last week. It's coming, right? Like we have a timeline that we agree to, right? Like there are things that are due at a certain time. There are things that are coming up that are due, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to do it. But also I know that I can have a conversation with Ryan about where I am and be honest because of the relationship, right? That I have as a writer with her as a producer.
Thanks. Just bouncing off of that, I would also love to hear from all of you what is the support that a program like Play Lab gives you? I think Marcus, but
So we have, I mean, since the project existed before Play Lab, but since we've come into Play Lab, we've been given, first of all, a team of artists and a dramaturg and our director. Just a wonderful team that I'm already really excited to work with. And then the process of, so far, 2 readings where we could hear the material, 2 workshops, one coming up in October that's internal and one in January that is open to the public, and then time to work on it until May when it premieres. So like I said, I can't work without knowing what the audience feels. So this opportunity to constantly come back to the work and the original idea and see how it's grown and just see how it's reflected here with you all is something that doesn't exist enough in American theater, and is is exactly what a playwright needs. And getting paid. I'm not gonna, right?
Well, because you work on them for years.
Years,
And nobody pays me.
right? So yeah, no, I mean that's we have to live. We've got to survive. I've got kids. We've got so all of that infrastructure is what gets me, and it's also what I think is the magic of theater, right? I tell my students this all the time. You absolutely cannot, theater, no matter, even if it's a one-person show, is not about one artist. There are always collaborators. And that to me is magic. That to me is like my spirituality, right? So that's what.
So I said I needed people to talk to. And this summer there was an intern here named Sabina.
Sabina. Jaffe. Brilliant.
Who, she just magically found me people. And I interviewed them, and now Dylan
Where's Dylan?
is in the back.
There he is.
He's magically finding me more people. And then so when you interview people, you need them transcribed, and so I just magically upload these interviews to Google Drive, and in 3 days, they're transcribed by somebody that's not me. And so that is like,
Transcription puppy.
it takes work off of me, that support that they give. And at some point, I'll get a director and a dramaturg we will have workshops, and more workshops in the production in 2024.
Yeah,
Is that where we are?
something like that.
Okay.
I think that's a really interesting thing to put out there, that the production is in 2024, because I think that, particularly when I was young and in college or grad school, and everything is begun and done in 3 months, the average length of a semester, right, or 4 months or whatever. And it was surprising to me that things took so much longer. And now, in planning out, I'm now basically a freelance artist. I teach, but then I do things like this, and my life is planned out in 2-year chunks.
Right.
And that's very difficult to do. And one thing that PlayLab does here is that it takes some of that planning process off of your plate. I have collaborators that I work with that we don't always have a connection with an institution or an organization. We have to plan it out ourselves, and it's a lot of work. So to be able to have that with a theater is a huge contribution.
Yeah, it feels like it's such a well-oiled machine here, and you kind of get injected into it, and it fits. Like everything just fits, and the cogs just move along pretty well. But you take it, you have an idea. Well, Ryan comes up with these ideas, and Dave and Marcus and people have these wonderful ideas that Passes fully gets behind and support, and there isn't like this heavy pressure to like, I must get this done. But there's a professionalism also that comes along with the job as well. So like with OK Trend, we had so many different pieces, interchangeable, so many different pieces coming and going, like people leaving, and now we have Victoria on it, who's amazing. So we just keep pulling a lot of amazing people into this whole circle of life.
Well, and people that didn't know each other before. I mean, I don't know that I knew anyone on the OK Trend team before you put us all together. I don't know if any of them, they may have, but.
You're a good matchmaker. You are, yeah.
You're a yenta.
Yeah.
I'm a yes, I am. Well, it's funny because I think that's something else about new work that I don't know. So if anybody ever wants to know what an artistic director does, it's matchmaking, right? So it's basically my job to be like, okay, you want to do a play. How do you want that play to be developed? I'm going to assume you want that play to be developed over 4 years. This is what I can give you, and this is the type of team I think will work with Marcus well, or Julia well, or David well. And so, especially I can say this for OK Trenton, I put however many people are on that show now, 10, 14, I don't even know, the people in the room that I knew that their process matched. And so you kind of have to know enough artists and have a long enough relationship with them and watch them long enough to go, oh, you're gonna be okay with you, but not with this person. So when you hire, for example, a stage manager on a project, you have to hire a stage manager that will get along with that director, and most of the time, they don't actually meet each other until the week before rehearsals start. So that's basically a lot of playwriting is, I think, who's in the room with you. And who allows you to feel good in that room, and who encourages you, and yet who can say to you, have you tried this, or maybe this, or I'm not sure. Like, I watch you two do it all the time. It's a beautiful thing to watch you two work together, where you will suggest edits to the other person's work as if it's like it doesn't feel like an editing. It feels like a collaboration. And so you have to make sure that there are people in the room that are supportive of that process.
Right.
And that's what, I hope we do.
Well, and I think that's important, because I think a lot of writers, and there's nothing wrong with this, and certainly I have this on some of my other works that I've done that are me, you know what I mean, that I wrote by myself. they're very territorial, and they want that. I actually remember this years ago doing a workshop here with you, and there were a lot of playwrights, a lot of young playwrights in the room, and a couple of them were very confused because they were like, wait, then whose play is it? In the end, whose name is, well, if I'm expressing myself, how do I, and there's nothing wrong with plays like that. That's great, but it's not what we're doing here at this moment.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
I would love to circle back actually to something you said, Julia, about new work in the American theater. I would love to know from you all how you've seen new work change in the American theater in the time that you've spent in the industry, and or where you would like to see it go. Have 5 hours?
We could be here all weekend talking about that.
Well, a couple things. One is you were talking about moment work. We were talking devised work, right? When Heartbeat, the company that I was with, when we started, the term devised work was not a term. So this is 2001, 20 years ago this month, and that was literally not.
Can you talk about what devised work is?
What's that?
Devised work is? What was
Yes,
your definition?
devised work is the idea of creating as we go, creating on stage. So it often is the playwright as a scribe, and actors and director, other artists up here, creating just based on their relationships, based on improv, based on maybe a tiny bit of an interview I give you, that kind of thing, and then seeing what magic is there and putting it down onto the paper that creates the play. And we literally had been doing this work, especially from an ensemble, which ensemble work is, the idea of ensemble theater is a group of people who create a body of work over a period of time, right? So very much in sync, very, knowing each other really well. And I lost my train.
Devised work.
Right. So then I think it was like 2010 when everyone started talking about devised work, devised work. And I was like, oh, I guess that's what we do. We've been doing that. But it has actually really, I think, diversified what is considered American theater, first of all. The other thing I would say is I think we are at the most exciting time I've ever seen for new work development in this country, because I think people are sick and tired of the old stuff, or sick and tired of the old ways, or we're ready for new people, we're ready for new voices, we're ready to take new risks, to find new genres. And we have theaters like this, so not just regional theaters or off-Broadway theaters, but community-based theaters that are willing to work with people like us to develop work. And so it's actually happening more because we have that support system. So I think it's an exciting time.
I would agree with that. I think that it's a remarkable time. The landscape is changing in a way that is making things more vibrant and more interesting. I think that when I first started, working with playwrights and doing new plays on the production end in the early 2000s, it was a very, here is the playwright, and the playwright has an identity, and the playwright wrote this play. The identity of the playwright was not quite as important, right, at that time. But there was a single creator and a single work, right? Then we kind of branched out and devising became a thing. And so it was much more about collaboration. Now I don't feel like collaboration is going away. I think that there continues to be an interest of that, but we are taking a much closer look at the identity of the playwright and who is telling whose stories. And I think that is a very, very interesting, that has led to some very interesting conversations. And I think that it means that we kind of have both, right? We kind of have the best of both worlds in a sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I have observed.
Well, for me, What was the question again? The American, how we feel about the American theater.
Where you feel like, how you feel like new work in the American theater has changed, and or where you want to see it go.
Well, I got a little bit exhausted with the American theater scene. Like seeing the same old, produced on Broadway, off Broadway, and stuff like that. For a little while, I was just living in my own little, I guess, biosphere, or like my own little zone. One thing I am happy about is seeing fellow playwrights like Diane Love and Lee Colson actually getting a little voice.
If
And a
you
little,
don't know who Danya R. Love is,
Yeah.
and Lee Colson,
Need it.
they are Philadelphia's finest.
get to know.
Yes.
They are getting more of a voice, right? So what I would like to see and what I got tired of seeing is certain stories being represented at a higher level than other stories, right? Like this story is worth more than this story. And I think that we're pushing towards a change in that, and it's a shame that it had to come when the whole nation had to stop and recognize what was going on in American theater.
Right.
With the casting, with the storytelling, with a lot of different things. And I know you guys probably heard about the We See You mission going on. And it's, to me, I get a little frustrated when you see and you know about the good work that's not being produced and not being put up. And that's why I stayed in my own little zone with dealing with theaters like Pastor's Theater, like Theater EX and Iron Age Theater that choose to give these stories voices. And I hope that on a local level that these type of ideas can spread out and push out a little bit further, because I think theater is about the community. Like, I don't watch the award shows. I don't give a fuck about that shit. Like, for me, I just, yeah.
So I'll add on top of that, I think that like the American theater, as someone who's been in it for a long time, when it came to a black play, it was what black play is more digestible for a white audience, right?
Exactly.
What play makes them feel comfortable? And I'm not interested in that work, right? I'm interested in the work that's gonna make them uncomfortable, right? Like Danya Love's play Soft, right? I'm interested in plays and I think that like it took the world stopping for the American theater to realize that black folks, brown folks, gay folks weren't in the audience because there were not stories that reflected them, right? There weren't stories about young people, right? And so who was in the audience was who the play was written for, right? Who the play was chosen for. And if we want to diversify what the American theater looks like, we need to diversify what we are planning for the season, right? I don't just want to see an August Wilson play in February. I don't. I don't want to see a Latinx play in Latin Heritage Month, which we're currently in, right? Program the plays and diversify the season, and people will come. Noel Coward is dead. He need no more money. He doesn't. His estate will be fine. I promise you. Tennessee Williams' estate will be fine, right? Like there are writers that like are somewhere with the voice and they've been silenced for so long. They've been told no for so long that they're afraid to write anymore. So when you run into a space like Passage that says, "What's your idea?" Yep, that's brilliant. We're gonna figure out how to make it happen, right? It makes me excited that there is something that's happening. I'm not interested in the Broadway that's a machine that will break your body down. Right? It will break your body down and replace you when it's broken. We'll tell you not to go have surgery. that you need to save your life because you got a show to do tonight. I'm not interested in that. Right? So any of these young people in the audience in the American theater, no is a full sentence. Protect your peace.
I'm so glad that you said that, because working with young people is a big thing for me as well. And I am thinking so much these days about theater programs that are aimed toward being a cog in the machine, and damn it, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do that, but it is so easy to fall into being abused. And it is abusive. Let's not make a mistake and call it it is not that those actors have more tenacity. It's not that they love the theater more. It's not that they are harder working, okay? They're willing to do things that, and they're actors on Broadway, they're wonderful. They have been able to find their place. They've been able to find a place that matches their inner life, and that they do it, but there are situations out there that are not acceptable.
Define success for yourself.
Yep.
The other thing I would say about this is the other piece of this that's gotten to me, is so beautiful, is places like this all over the country, right? This size theater, this level theater, that is literally happening in all pockets. We are not, we're not New York centered anymore. We have, the network of ensemble theater has 300 companies all over the country. So the fact that we've taken it and said our artwork can be made anywhere, I think is also really helping.
Yeah.
And it's valid anywhere.
Yeah.
It is important anyway.
Yeah.
And I love the technology aspect behind it, because now you don't have to rely on these big companies trying to produce your work, right? So we found out through technology that people are doing some amazing stuff out there. Like, I can't remember her name. Steph, what is the name of the show that we were watching, the one-person show on Broadway?
Mi Madre?
No, not that. What was? I can't remember her name. But it was it was amazing, right? And it was, I think it was through Zoom. I think he recorded himself going through COVID.
The one who did it in the box in his closet during the pandemic?
Yeah, that guy.
Bo Burnham.
Yeah.
Bo
Burnham.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
So I thought that was a good show, right? I thought this is somebody who took what he had available to him and made his story and put it out there for everybody to see, right? And I think now, what I think the young artists need to do coming up now is take responsibility for your work. You need to be able to join your community, whoever it is that you're surrounded around and that you trust, and actually put your work out there. Take responsibility for your work, take charge of your work. And don't look for the door to open for you. Create your own door and then walk through it with your own crew. You know what I'm saying? So I think now, when we take more responsibility for telling our stories, directing our stories, and putting them up, and flooding the industry with it, you even see it in the music industry now. People are taking control of their art. You take control of your art and you push it out there. And that's the way that you could probably start making the shift and the change. And so that's one thing I did like about being in lockdown, and seeing people being creative with the work that they were putting out there, because it was some amazing stuff being done. But then sometimes I did get tired of watching.
Well, it made theater accessible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's this whole community of people that had been forgotten because they couldn't afford to see a show. But the fact that now you can, a lot of theaters are, they're having the run of the show, right? And then what they're doing is when that run closes, the actor gets another contract.
Yep.
And they're streaming the show because they recorded it, right?
We're being streamed right now.
So there's this audience that we have cultivated, right? Like, we did that with Surely Goodness and Mercy, right? We recorded the show in 2 different ways to create an experience for everyone to watch it at home, right? And so, you know, my family, we watched it all together at the same time. We were all on Zoom, but watching it on our own computer screens. Like, we had an experience together that, like, we didn't have to leave our house for, right? But we could celebrate the fact that this art is accessible and it's made and we can see it. And my 97-year-old great aunt, who had never seen anything I had done, was able to see something I created for the first time in her life, right? Like, that is the thing, that's why we make art.
Yep. Yep. And Kat, I love that word accessible, right? Because I work with a theater group, Theater in EX, right? And that was our whole mission, to make art accessible, right? To make plays and theater accessible. Because some theaters in Philadelphia, especially theaters downtown, believe, okay, let's not do this story because black people won't come see this black play, right? It's not that black people won't come see this black play. You don't make it accessible. I'm about to curse. You don't make it accessible. Like there are black people who live in neighborhoods who would love to see certain plays produced in certain theaters, but it's not open to them, and they don't feel welcome. We don't feel welcome there. So with Theater in EX, we go into Malcolm X Park and we produce plays for free for people in that community to come out and see these plays. And
Fantastic plays.
and the thing about it is when a kid comes see those plays, or and they get inspired to actually go into the arts, or they get inspired to actually write another play, or they get inspired to go to college and learn the arts, or whatever it may be. Opening those doors to those young black minds is so important. So accessibility is so important in the theater community, and we get this whole elitist role with theater. Theater was never meant to be elitist, and we turned it into that. Broadway was never, when Broadway first came out, you could go see a Broadway show back in the day, and it wouldn't cost you $80, $90, $200.
$417.
$417 to go see a show? It's just ridiculous. So they cater to certain type of people, certain class of people. And that's why I love that word accessibility, because it's so necessary, and I think it's missing from the theater world and the theater community.
Yeah.
We have to bring it back. We have to bring it back.
Can I tail off? I'm sorry. No. I want to go back to something that Victoria asked about what would you hope what happens to the American theater now, and this reminded me. I'm from Missouri originally. I haven't been there in 30 years, or I've been there, haven't lived there in 30 years, but I still know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people doing theater in Missouri, in the Midwest, and outside of the major cities, which is Chicago and little else, in the Midwest. Theater, this isn't happening quite so much. It's happening some, but when people think of theater there, it is still the model of, I'm going to get the Samuel French catalog, Concord Theatricals now, and I'm going to flip through it. And plays that aren't in here don't exist. There are no new plays, there are no new playwrights. I'm going to choose one that I remember reading in the 80s. And we're going to do our Beth Henley Film Play Festival. And I love Beth Henley, it's fine. But they're not going to produce anything that wasn't written. I see them on Facebook, my friends that are artistic directors. What play should we produce? And people are chiming in, with nothing that was written after 1989. And there is still a mindset that is stuck in late 20th century New York Broadway. If it didn't filter down, and things aren't filtering down that way. The landscape of new works is not the same as it used to be. New plays that are part of the 21st century canon are getting done at regional theaters elsewhere, outside of New York, and people aren't aware of them. So if I had one wish, it would be that people's minds begin to open to that. we start seeing some of the playwrights that you two were talking about being done in the middle of, you know, I was telling someone about Chisa Hutchison's plays recently that hadn't heard of her yet. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Brilliant.
So anyway, that's what
Anybody here see Shirley Goodness and Mercy? Anybody? Anybody? Couple people?
Marcus is the director.
Amazing. Before I open it up to the audience for a few questions, I would just love for you all to just briefly remind us where you are in your process and next steps for you in your journey.
Still interviewing. I have a treatment due in January.
Yep.
Great. That's where I am.
We had callbacks today, so we are hopefully on our way to being fully cast. We have our first workshop in 2 weeks back here, which I'm really excited about. So that's a week or so process of working with actors and seeing what this is like up here. Then there's another one in January, which hopefully you all come back to, because that one's open to the public. And then I guess we open May 5th.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. We'll be back here.
we're working this weekend.
Yeah, we're working this weekend. Working out the script.
Yeah, we're both doing edits on our different sections
Yeah.
this
And
weekend.
for junior high, you meet the kids on October 4th.
Yeah,
Yes.
Kids on October
Yeah.
4th.
Next week we'll be back in here in OK Trenton. The week after, we'll be working on the Hedgebeth Williams one.
So they're at all different places. Some of them have scripts, some of them don't.
Some of us are still questioning, what the fuck are we doing?
There's, I think I spotted your hand. If you had
Yeah.
a question.
Yes, when you're thinking of a play, it seems you all have a message that you want to get out there. Is that correct for all of you?
Sometimes it's a question.
A question,
Yeah.
that's a better idea.
Yeah.
You have a question.
Yeah.
In that question, is there something that you want people to think about? And that furthers the play, is that correct? Because someone said he wants people to feel uncomfortable. Because that's the way we learn, and we have to figure out why are we so uncomfortable. Sometimes when I've gone to the theater, not here, in other places, you know, I've listened to people, and a comment several years ago was, I don't like the selection of the plays in this particular theater. And I said, why? Because I feel someone's preaching to me. That's the discomfort that you were talking
Yes.
about. Because some of the plays talked about the feelings of minority people. And that made some of the people either in the audience uncomfortable or they felt they knew it all. But personally, I felt like saying, you don't know it all because you haven't worked in Trenton and haven't had the experience of calling, sharing with you what it's like for their kids to go to school and have their notebook ripped off or a pair of sneakers taken and the discomfort. And I had one friend say, come in the store with me. And I went in the store. This was a colleague who was a black colleague. And I saw that every time we changed aisles, someone was watching us from the other end. And I never had that experience before. And many white people don't.
Yep.
But somehow you're saying people try to reach a level comfortable for white people. And I said, I was involved in training, and I said, I need someone to come and talk to white people about how to dialogue with minorities without feeling uncomfortable, because they don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things about theater, to me, is that it starts that conversation for you.
That's right.
And that you can go to a play with someone and you can take that play in. And as an audience member, actually, if you go to a play by yourself as an audience member, you can have a conversation with those people on stage, and you can have that experience, you can have that learning experience. And it's a step in, right?
And it's uncomfortable, but it's safe.
But it's safe.
Nothing's gonna
because
happen to you.
Nothing's going to happen to you in the theater, right? So if you go with somebody else who actually has, yeah, but you have that doorway, right? Or if you go by yourself, you have that exchange, and you can meditate on that, and you can think about that, and you can grapple with that, and you can take that in, right? And maybe you go see it again, right? And maybe that time you bring somebody and you say, I need to talk about this. Can you watch this? I need to talk about this. So for me, it's a way of asking those really hard questions without having to ask them yourself.
Yeah, and my grandmother used to say something to me, may she rest in peace, that anything that doesn't grow is dead, right? That's what she was saying. Anything that doesn't grow is dead, right? And I think that like, we should all be willing to grow and expand and see things and experience things that will cause us to grow outside of our comfort, right? Because when we do that, right? Like I tell people all the time, I was trained in whiteness. What do you mean by that, Marcus? I went to a historically white, predominantly white institution for undergrad. I was the only black person in my class. I walked in the first day. My teacher looked at me, Molly Behringer, said to me, I'm going to beat the black out of you. I had an accent. You don't hear it. It comes in when I'm talking to my mother and father and my relatives, right? I was trained, in all of my training programs, I never got to play anyone black. That's trauma for me, right? And so when I say I'm writing a black-ass play, it's because I want black people to see themselves in a way that I didn't get to see myself. And that's important for me. So when I'm writing the play, the question that I'm investigating is, how can I help my people heal in a world that wants to keep us sick?
And sometimes I find it a little bit annoying and bewildering, the defenses that go up when people see these plays, right? Like, I will never forget about, God, I'm so lost in time, when Barack Obama first got elected, right? So we did this play in Philadelphia, downtown, called The Slave by Mayor Baraka, right? So we did this play, and if you don't know Mayor Baraka, you need to look him up. He's from New Jersey.
Newark.
From Newark, yeah. Amazing. You want to talk about a person who used theater to make change in the community and arts, like, look that brother up. So we did The Slave. And this one reviewer came, and I'll never forget this review. And the reviewer said, I don't understand why you're doing this play, and we just elected a black president.
So it's done.
And I'm like,
Oh, we fixed it.
Right. No need for the black play anymore.
really? But the funny thing about it, when Donald Trump got elected, the same person who reviewed this play posted, oh, America is so racist. And I'm thinking, that's why 8 years ago, we did that play.
Right.
So it's like you can always learn. Just when you think you know it, you don't know it. You don't know it. These experiences still happen, and the reason why white America right now is probably saying it, because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Like, I grew up in the hood, right? So, like, the stuff that you're seeing now, the I can't breathe and everything, I've been experiencing that. I've been seeing that on my corner all the time. I watch cops chase my friends down the street. I watch cops throw my friends, like, up against the wall for no reason. curfew. We used to have a thing in Philadelphia called Operation Sunrise. So if you were out on the corner at a particular time, you got locked up. No questions asked. But now you're seeing it now. Now it's being shown to you because we have phones. And it's been happening. It's been happening for the longest time. So when you think you know, you really don't know. You don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's not being filmed. That's happening every day. There's probably something going on right now while we're sitting here.
And truthfully, if anybody feels that they're being preached to by a play, it's because they haven't taken the time to think through it and respond.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Because, like Julia was saying, to me, a play is a conversation. So if we're going to tell you something, we want to hear you respond.
Yeah.
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 And I
Open to
think
it.
that the question, and maybe we're not asking our audiences to respond enough, which is why you're all here. But and I do think that seeing a play is half the conversation.
Right. Like, and so my friend Dominique Morisseau, who wrote a play called Pipeline.
Where are my students that are reading Pipeline this semester?
Which is a play I'm dying to direct. Hint, hint.
I only do new plays. I can't help it.
No, it's terrible. So when the play was done, and you can Google it, when the play was done at Lincoln Center Theater, she wrote a manifesto about how to respond to the play. Like, literally, this play is church for Black people, so you're gonna hear so say say amen. When an audience responds verbally to a play, it lets you know you're doing your job.
Right.
Right? Like, sometimes I remember seeing this play called The House That Will Not Stand by Marcus Gardley. And I literally gave a standing ovation at intermission. Like, I was responding to everything. It was all Black women on the stage giving me everything they got, right? And I was clapping, laughing, hooting, hollering, and this white woman, I was in the theater by myself. She grabbed my hand and she said, "Babe, you're not supposed to react." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, this ain't your story. So I'm gonna respond how I want to," right? Like, we need to stop policing bodies in the theater, right? Because how people respond is how they were supposed to respond in that moment to what's happening in that moment. Because that's what we need to hear, right?
That's the
So
conversation.
Passage Theater's response.
That is the conversation.
No, we asked for that here. Passage audiences respond. Or I hope they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a question, and then when you mentioned Amir Farak, certainly I'm familiar with him, and his son, Ross Farak, the mayor in Newark. He, and I just had to check it, he did a poem, What We Want. And if you get an opportunity, Google it, it's awesome. But I had a question about monetizing delivery of product or a play or material when you're doing it through technology, like Zoom and different things like that. How does a playwright actually go into monetizing something like that and not having their material stolen from them?
I think the answer is we don't quite know yet in this iteration of what we're seeing. I was just having this conversation earlier today. I mean, we're not sure, and the idea that people are seeing, if they're seeing it on their computer, they don't feel the need to pay for it. And I personally don't know what the answer is at this point, but I think we're trying to figure it out.
Unions?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
That's
I
it.
can answer
That's
that a
it.
little bit. So I can answer it a little bit. So when we did, Passage's whole season was basically online last year. And there was, what basically you do is you only make it available to people who click on a certain link, and they only have it for that certain amount of time. So that you're then guaranteeing that that person is only viewing it once or only. Now, I will say that one person can have 20 people over at their house and view it, and 20 people are gonna sit there and watch it, and that's what it is. But they are advancing more now that your work will not be there forever. It can only be viewed by like one click for a certain amount of time. Much like if you rent a movie and it says you have 24 hours to view this movie. That's kind of what's happening now. And the unions have been very diligent about making sure that they are coming up with rules and procedures and contracts. They do it kind of slowly, but they are catching up to help with that a little bit.
There is a kind of, I mean, in the realm of we're not sure yet, I have found myself in an odd situation. There was a theater that I work a lot with up north, and a production of mine, one of my, John Guerker's doing rip-off comedies, you know, got canceled because of the pandemic, and so they did an audio version. And they recorded it remotely. And that audio version is now available to purchase for, I don't know, $9.99 or something like that. You can listen to the play, and it's done. And now I find that the play itself, I don't know what the extended life of that play is now. Is it done?
Yeah.
Can I mean, there's already a production that's there that anyone that wants to listen to, not see, but is anyone going to produce it again? I mean, ideally, you write the play, and it receives multiple productions, and you know, and I don't know if that's true for this one now.
Well, it's kind of turned the medium into audiobooks and film.
Yeah.
And so with the two unions, for anybody that cares, the Actors Equity Union and the stage
SAG-AFTRA.
the SAG-AFTRA, brain. There was some question about whether theater on Zoom theater was actually under the world of
SAG-AFTRA.
film, or whether it was in the world of theater, and it was lawsuits and craziness all year. So behind the scenes, we were trying to figure out the same question for the past year.
Yeah.
I just want to do a quick time check with you.
Yeah, we should probably do
Two
some
more.
more. Or can we hang in for two more?
Amazing. Yes, please. And yours.
Okay, hi, my name is Les Gooden, nice to meet all of you. So I wanted to know, as an audience member, a student, as an actor emerging into the theater world, how can I ensure that these stories are being told and that this type of theater is going to be seen by people?
Can I tell you where to start?
Yes, please.
In your department? Now, go to your chair, tell them the department needs a subscription to New Play Exchange.
I think they have one, but if they don't, they will.
That's where new plays are.
Yeah.
Start reading those plays. Tell the department that you, as the students there, want one of these plays in their season at least.
That's
That is awesome.
There you go.
Amazing.
Great, because those plays are written by people that don't have agents, right? And so you have to talk to them,
Yeah.
right?
And for anybody here, the New Play Exchange is through the National New Play Network, and I think it costs $10 a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not that.
It's a lot to sift through,
It
but
is.
That's a lot.
And,
That's
and
okay.
many of
Yeah.
these
But you
people
got
are on
keywords.
it,
Yeah.
and you can read all of their plays.
But you can select plays by like what theme, how many people, do you want a black lead, a white, like you can literally filter, and it'll give you all the things that you need in front of you.
New Play Exchange.
Right, New Play Exchange is where you can start.
and they are all professional playwrights.
Correct.
I mean, they, you know, we pay for that service.
Right.
Correct.
Not much more than $10 a year.
That's true.
Excellent question. Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Several of you mentioned interviewing and having people set you up with, I'm assuming people in the community.
Yes.
And I was reminded of this incredible experience of seeing Anna Devere Smith actually at the Carter Theater in Princeton, and doing excerpts from Notes from the Field, which is about the School to Prison Pipeline, and in the back you've got, it's a one-woman show, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's incredible, it's on HBO now. But I was fascinated by her process, and I was wondering whether that process of interviewing and then using verbatim, which I gather she does, is something that's more common now. And whether that process, which I was a journalist, so it's like fascinating, it's like journalism,
Right.
and
Yes.
then bringing those voices in, not as fiction, but as almost reportage.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be completely opposed to that. I just sort of-
She's known as the mother of verbatim theater.
Okay.
And so it was popularized by her. I think people were they were doing it before her, right? And so, and she is so verbatim, right? Like she literally studies when they take a breath, when they turn their head, when they do all of that. A lot of, like, I'm focused on the text verbatimly, and how do I use that in the story? Because I don't know where the story's going.
And you did interviews and turned them into, you weren't verbatim.
No, I don't, I've almost never done verbatim work. And this current group it's an each character, there's 6 characters, and they're amalgam of multiple people I've interviewed.
And then I know our show is,
90%.
it's verbatim,
Yeah.
but also keep in mind, and it depends on the show, if somebody else is, if you are playing an actor, if you are an actor playing a real person, you're always going to see it through that lens,
Yep.
right? They're never going to be that person sitting on stage. So I know that, for OK Trenton, we are taking what we hope to be the essence of these people as we see it, but it is verbatim in their text, but it can never be in their being.
Yes.
So the artistic interpretation is always going to be there.
Right.
Because you're really painting,
Just like it is in a documentary.
yes, you're painting a
always
portrait
a
of that person. And I think it has become more popular. I think Andrew Smith did a lot. Of course, Tectonic took on Laramie and that kind of blew up. I think people are doing it more because there is that question of whose story is it, whose voice is it. And I think that if you're a playwright, you're coming at everything as a playwright. So as a director, I go, what is it like to be someone who works on a farm, right? I can't really write that because I've never worked on a farm. So why don't I just talk to someone who's worked on a farm? Right? I mean, you could go down a long pathway and do a ton of research, or you could just talk to someone who's worked on a farm. So, I think it's a curiosity of more authenticity in our work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then maybe one more, and then
Yeah, we probably have
one
time
more?
for one more.
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Hey, my name's Danny. So I'm a playwright as well. I'm a Jewish white boy, but the thing I'm struggling with is I don't want to write stories about Jewish white boys for the rest of my life.
Great.
And so what is the appropriate way, as someone who hasn't had experiences like with being interviewed and with working with people who have experience that I don't, what is the appropriate way to tell other people's stories in a way that is not intrusive or inaccurate?
Make sure there's always someone in the room with you who has that perspective.
Yep.
Okay.
Research and collaboration.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jack O'Brien, who's a 5-time Tony Award-winning, 10-time Tony-nominated director, said something when he worked on Ragtime that I thought was brilliant. He was like, I don't know what it's like to be white, to be black. How am I gonna tell these black people how to be black in this story? He was like, so what I did was I told the producers, I need black people next to me telling me what it is like to be black. So I can tell these actors what I want to see, but I want to make sure I'm communicating clearly, right, for a way that they understand.
And theater's an easy way to do that because we have big teams in theater.
Yeah.
We have consultants, we have intimacy directors, we have designers, we have assistant directors, we have dramaturgs, right? So it's not that hard to have somebody else in that room.
But I will say, I think I 100% agree, and I think that goes back to the collaborative beauty. But I also there are there are stories that are not mine to tell, that I would love to see, and haven't been maybe told, but it's not mine to tell. And that I mean, that's okay. Like, that's the time we're in where we're learning that every day. And yeah, it's finding your medium, I think.
Yep.
Of yes, I don't want to always tell the white Jewish boy story, but what can I tell and how can I tell it?
And just also remember that you're not only a white Jewish boy.
Yeah.
You have a lot of other
There are
stories.
a lot more other things in there.
Right. Well, and I think too that there is, the way you know if it's a story that you can tell or not tell is that at some point in your research, in your discussions, in your collaborations, you will find a meeting point. And it may take a while. But I remember Karen Hernandez-Granzon, who is a local pastor here in Trenton. I remember hearing her speak from the pulpit once, and she talked about having a conversation with a black woman from her congregation, and how they first had a conversation, and they were like, "We're not so different. We have a lot in common." And then they continued to talk, and then they were like, "Whoa, wait a minute. We do not have very much in common. There is a lot of difference here." But they continued to talk, and as they got to the bottom of the spiral, which is how she put it, they found a point of commonality. And that point of commonality is not something you can impose, it's not something you can wish, it's not something you can create, but it is hopefully there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think that's a good place to end.
I was going
I
to say,
love the
please
com-
join me in thanking these panelists.
Thank you. That's it. Come back and see us. We'll see you in January. Thank you.
Great.
I gotta hand this one. Is this thing on?
I just said.
I don't wanna walk in front of it even. I'm gonna go and, yeah, no, you're good. Thank you, sir.